everyone, and welcome to our first ever special edition of the Lipedema Patient Roundtable, sponsored by Lympha Press. I am Brenda Viola, and I'm so happy to host this amazing cast of stars. You know, like, remember back in the day, Night of 1,000 Stars, or when Love Boat would show all their special guests? I feel like this is a Love Boat of the stars of the FDRS conference. And many of you are logging on right now. You were either there or you were there virtually, or you missed it and you want to catch up on what you may have missed. More than anything, we want you to stay encouraged and motivated. That's why we said, let's do an extra special episode. And you'll see some new faces here that were some of the stars of the FDRS conference. And I'm actually going to do the regular circular roundtable here, but then for our special guests who have never been on the roundtable before, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourselves and telling us what you talked about at FDRS. But the regular cast of wonderful characters, in my bottom left corner, I don't know where she is on your screen, Pale Ginger Pear. Hello, beautiful. It's good to see you. She was one of the speakers at FDRS, and she's always one of our anchor panelists. And of course, the lippy butterfly, Angelique Charles, is here for us tonight, and she is wearing, show us your shirt, the Pale Ginger Pear roller coaster shirt that many of us wore at the FDRS conference. Jenny Beaujean, she represents lipedema and food sensitivities, and she is a regular anchor panelist here for this special event. She attended FDRS virtually, so it'll be interesting to hear what her perspective was. You all know Pattie Cornute of Lipedema Fitness, and we're so glad she's rocking her Peloton t-shirt. She motivates all of us to stay active, and we so appreciate you, Pattie. And then Siouxie Boshoff, who you can tell she's the traveling woman once again. She is also a regular anchor panelist of the roundtable. And then we have our wonderful guests, and we thank everyone. First of all, before we even go there, oh my goodness, look at all these wonderful, amazing people in chat. Let's shout out our chatters. We love you. Keep the chat going. Stephanie from Cleveland just got her Lympha Press. Oh, and Julie Dukes, who I fell in love with at FDRS. I finally got to hug her in person. We've got Francine Schwartz and Karin Feltman and Amanda Hadaway and Megan Fruit. We missed you at FDRS this year, but we're going to send all the love out to all of you right now. Keep chat going. It is sizzling hot. But let me say hello to Jenn Sephton. Jenn, thank you for being with us tonight. And for those who don't know you, tell us where you're from and what you talked about at FDRS in a little nutshell.
Okay. Hi there. I am from Toronto area in Canada. 2 years in a row, I think I've been the only Canadian to attend the conference in person. There was rumor of somebody else from out west, but I never got to meet her. So anyway, I spoke this year on the patient perspective panel, and my topic was learning to pivot when surgeries are part of your treatment plan, but not necessarily the answer. So my talk was mostly about how I, try to stay positive and persevere when I didn't get the outcomes that I was hoping for with 3 lipedema reduction surgeries.
That was so well said. And you took us all on quite an emotional ride with you. And yet laughter too. She started out with the screenshot of Ross on Friends with the couch trying to go up the steps, and how he would say, pivot, pivot, pivot. Yeah. And your journey had many pivots. Does any one of our regular panelists want to say anything about how Jenn's speech touched them? And I know, Pale Ginger Pear, you're getting ready to talk, but Angelique, I'm going to you.
I'm saying, with what happened in the past 12 months, I think Jenn kind of highlighted that need to pivot and not be stuck in this was what was going to happen and this is how I wanted it to be. It really highlighted for me the emotions that I was feeling when I was trying to go down one trajectory, and then it felt like everything completely fell apart. Like I was completely bawling. I could almost like uncontrollably throughout the rest of her presentation, because it really gave me, I think that was where hope really started to set in, was with Jenn's presentation. It was like, wait a minute, okay, if I look at this a little bit differently, maybe I can go back home and have something outlined. Maybe I can start looking at a different outline and get to a different place. So I really appreciated what Jenn said with the pivot. I even came home and started using that phrase a little bit more often. It was more like I was saying, I need to pivot a little bit better in this. I need to pivot from what I was doing into something different. So thank you, Jenn.
Thank you, Jenn. Such a great reminder. I have to handle a piece of business. I'm going to go to Pale Ginger Pear, who has some thoughts about what you talked about too. And then everyone else, feel free to jump in.
So first of all, thank you for making me bawl before I had to go on and present.
That's why I went first. No.
I'm sitting there next to Pattie, like constantly like dabbing, trying not to ruin the little bit of makeup that I had put on, because I knew that I was gonna cry. I just didn't expect to cry like right away. But I think it was such a good and needed story and journey of listening to your body, and how you said over and over you wish you would have waited longer before pushing through for the next one, because I know I powered through surgeries, but I also know that I felt well enough to do so. So I think it's a good reminder that we need to listen to our bodies, because we do know best. And it's just awful that sometimes, at least in the US, that insurance gives us a time frame where we have to get stuff done, or we're out of luck. And that's not really fair when we have conditions like lipedema and Derkums and stuff like that, that our bodies get worn out quicker. And so I think it was great that you spoke on that, like, you know, some of these doctors that we trust give us prescriptions that aren't good for our condition, and that we need to listen to our bodies and all of that. So
Being our own advocates. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, PGP. Go ahead.
Just that I know it's a hard story to tell, especially with a condition that's so pro-surgery, even myself, because I know that it's something that for a lot of people is the only hope, or what seems like the only hope. And we need to go in with it realistic, that if it helps, it helps. And if it doesn't, it might not. So I think it's a good story to tell out there.
And I love the fact that, Jenn, you were brave, you spoke up bravely, and you don't have to be perfect or have it all figured out for your story to have power and impact. And I think that was a wonderful example of pressing through it. Any final thoughts before I move on to some of our other new panelists, Jenn?
I think that just what you said there, like that was the hard part for me. Like everyone, I actually had to stop taking before and after pictures, because it wasn't like I was after anyway, but you know, I just, and so I had to stop comparing myself to other people, because I kept telling myself, like, you're strong, you didn't even need epidurals when you had babies, like you can put up with pain, like, you know. And I kept thinking, why is this so much harder for me than everybody else? It seemed like, but that's not necessarily true. I think sometimes people just don't tell the harder stories, right? Everybody wants to get success stories. So it was, that was, I think, a big deal for me to come out and start talking about lipedema before I had this like amazing after picture.
Well, you are amazing, period. And for those of you who have never been to one of our roundtables before, please know we don't advocate that there is one path for everyone. Everyone, you must do what's right for you. Be your own advocate, ask your own questions. And by the way, feel free to put questions in our Q&A tonight for any of our amazing panelists. We appreciate the people that have taken the path of surgery PGP, you've been so candid and vulnerable about your own journey. There are other people who prefer not to go that route. We honor all decisions because they are yours, and we honor you most of all. So another voice that really made an impact at FDRS is a new friend that we see on our screen right now, Wyckham Avery. Wyckham, thank you for being here.
Oh my gosh, I'm so honored to be invited and be a part of this. I'm a little jealous. I'm a Derkham's patient, not a lipedema patient, so we don't have one of these. And I'm just like, well, I want to hang out with all you.
You can hang out with us anytime.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
it was so funny because Wyckham spoke before I did, a couple people before I did. And I thought, did she read my notes? Because so much of what you said about self-worth and knowing your worth was so in line with some of the things I said. So for those who may not have been there or who would like a reminder, can you give us a little snapshot of your talk?
So I'm new to the whole world of fat disorders. I was just diagnosed about a year ago. And I was at this FDRS, obviously, and went to the previous one in Cleveland. And, you know, when I got my diagnosis, I joined all the Facebook groups and was doing all my research. And a thing that I noticed was there was a lot of self-deprecation, and there was a lot of beating ourselves up because of our size and because of our weight. And I was like, we need to help each other out of this. So I just put together a little presentation about kind of what my process has been about facing my own like fat phobia or fat bias, and just sort of put some steps out about how each of us can try to start that journey. Like, we're never gonna be fully like done with it because we live in a society that is very fat phobic and runs off this diet industry, but you know, we can help each other out and be appreciative for what our bodies do.
Well said. Well, and
Thanks.
thank you. Does anybody else want to speak about how Wyckham's talk affected them? Go ahead, Pattie.
2 words: internal fat phobia. I'm like, whoa, that really kind of blew me away to see that come up. And, you know, I work so hard about my own stuff and trying to be, you know, sharing a positive body image, do no harm. You know, it's hard when you have a condition that really changes your body kind of out of your hands and takes that control or whatever you want to call it away from you. And just to see that come up, because you think, yeah, I'm doing good. You know, I've been doing this for 10 years and I'm on track. And then I'm reading the bullets that fall underneath that. And I'm like, oh my God, that's still me. I still do some of that. And that's okay. You just acknowledge it, just like she said, just acknowledge it. And you move on, or you try to understand why you're feeling that way. And then you readjust your thoughts. You know, so it was very powerful for me. So thank you very much.
You're welcome. I'm so glad that it had some resonance with you, especially because you do like fitness work, and I think that's a real disconnect for people, that you know, that you can be healthy and athletic and be fat at the same time. Like, so many people don't get that. So I love what you're doing. I just think it's so important.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Anybody else before we move on? Go ahead, Jenny.
You know, I have to tell you, I loved their presentation. Wyckham just came alive and kind of reminded me to stay alive and not to shrink back from things. You know, I think sometimes we're wont to do when we're out in the world. You know, I'm me. And I've always kind of been me, but sometimes I think with this condition, you just kind of start clamming into your shell a little bit. And I really took away the energy that their presentation brought to me. Was pretty amazing. And if you haven't gone back and looked at it yet again, go watch it. was phenomenal.
Yes,
If you were
yes.
if you were there or attended virtually, you already have access to it. And everybody else, if you weren't there, you'll get it when it comes out on YouTube. And boy, it's powerful.
Definitely powerful. I love that it lives somewhere so we can go back and remind ourselves.
Yes.
Several of us had blog posts over the past week talking about the post-conference blues and how very real that can feel. And why we're doing this tonight is to help us all surmount those post-conference blues. We were wowed by Hiba. Can you please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your background and how you ended up on the stage and what you talked about? You were amazing too.
So my name is Hiba Hamati. I diagnosed myself about 3 years ago, actually, thanks to Cara. I found one of her posts, and thanks to Pattie, I found out I should be wearing compression. So FDRS kind of naturally fell onto my radar through those two lovely ladies. But after I got an official diagnosis, I noticed that I was rapidly losing mobility, strength, and just the pain was more than I had anticipated it being. And so for me, surgery was the next logical path. But my history with surgery had been very, very rocky. I had never had a successful procedure in my life, from being allergic to all the anesthesia I was given, being allergic to pain medication, being given things that I shouldn't have had, to just not mentally being prepared for it. I knew that I wanted to do something different this time. And so knowing just our bodies are completely unpredictable and we can do all the right things and still not end up where we want to be. And that's unfortunately just part of it, right? But for me, I really, really tried to focus on, okay, these are the things that didn't work for me in the past. This is why I ended up having some not successful surgeries in the past. What can I do different for me this time in my body and to try to get a different outcome? And so that's what I spoke about.
Very inspiring. Who wants to share how Hiba's talk impressed them? Go ahead. Angelique, you are, by the way, did we all just love seeing Angelique and her beloved Michael together the whole time? There was just little love balls, like, floating over them. And he said he even had post FDRS blues in the chat. So Michael, we see you, we hear you, and we love that you join the roundtable every month to support your sweetheart. So go ahead, Angelique, what did you want to say about Hiba's talk?
Is FDRS is like technically me and Michael's anniversary, because that's where we made that first connection. So FDRS is special to us. Hiba, I ended up Hiba gave me some backbone that I ended up using today while I was talking to a social worker. The social worker was asking me why I hadn't settled on certain therapists and stuff like that. And I was like, no, it could be 35 people before I get there. I understand that I do not have to settle for a practitioner or a therapist or anybody who does not understand my condition, who is not willing to do the research. Hiba actually gave me some gumption. She gave me the audacity today. I was not taking it. She was like, would you mind if I recommend it? You can recommend it, but I am still going to interview them. So thank you, Hiba.
I think there should, cheers, beautifully said.
Happy.
I wish I want to play in the background Twisted Sister. We're not gonna take it. No, we ain't gonna take it. And because you inspired us about the standard of care for lipedema in the United States, which it lives on the Lympha Press website. It lives on by the way, shout out to the Lipedema Foundation for their amazing presence and all they did to make the FDRS such a wonderful event. Also the organizers of FDRS, amazing stuff. But yeah, even more so. So we all got a little more swagger after the fashion show, and Curvy Girl Beth is here with us tonight. She organized an amazing fashion show. Why don't you, for the people who don't know you, which I don't know who wouldn't know you, but tell us who you are. Tell us about your experience at the fashion show.
Let me first say something about Hiba, because I had something that I felt was pretty transformative. And that was, I felt that Hiba, she covered everything from A to Z. and she minced no words. And she spoke about a lot of different topics that people actually like to gloss over and push under the rug. And she spoke the facts, and she spoke the reality that people really don't like to hear. But I felt that everybody received it so well because it was fact, and the way that she delivered it, people were able to actually receive it. And so I thought that that was really fantastic. So thank you, Hiba. So I'm Beth Rylaarsdam. I'm known as Curvy Girl Beth across socials. And this was the second year I coordinated and hosted the fashion show. I think we had, what, Jen, did we have 10? I think we were 10 in total.
It was either, yeah.
This year, I think we had 10. And I guess in the early days of FDRS, before my time, it was really about highlighting compression in the different compression companies. And so that was all good and fine. And then over the years, they brought in people's individual fashion. And this year, I kind of was like, well, shouldn't we just reach out to some fashion companies and see what we could do? And then we really decided against that because we thought that it was really more important to highlight what each person felt comfortable in, because, you know, I can style you. I mean, that's what I actually do, except evidently I can't style myself because look at my thing was sticking out there.
Nobody noticed it, by the way.
Priceless. Anyway, so we really thought, you know what, let's stick with how we have had it, and let's have people really put themselves out there and volunteer. So I have, for the past 2 years, really tried not to ask anybody to be involved. I really wanted it to come from their hearts. And then when they were like a little hesitant, then I kind of reminded them that, you know, they initially volunteered and perhaps they should go with their initial gut reaction, because, you know, we have to learn to honor ourselves, right? You know, that's one of the things that we don't necessarily always do. And so I think that it was well received this year. I think we had different styles. I think we had a number of jeans. Jeans was big this year because we had a couple, actually all three gals, although they all had a different style of jean, they all, that was like their first pair of jeans in like forever. And so how can you, I mean, it's such a big part of our culture now, then how could you not highlight that? You know, I think we kind of showed everything. And you know, from my perspective, I have always been someone who has always looked at where can you find the best deals, and how can you actually, you know, enhance what you have and feel comfortable in it. And so I think that's what we did this year.
Well, it was a big hit and it was empowering.
Thank
And
you,
I love
Megan.
what Karen Lavoie had to say in chat. She said, I thought it was meaningful that the models wore their own clothes and showed off what they felt great in. And different events were included, like Mother of the Bride, date night, hiking. Jen, how did you pick your outfits for the fashion show?
Well, my outfits actually kind of changed. I was so swollen the week, like it started a couple days before I flew in, and then of course the plane ride made it worse. So I was actually supposed to wear a different dress, but the short kind of beige boots that I had to go with it, they didn't fit anymore. I couldn't get them on. I was so swollen in my right leg. And with my laptop bag being stolen, I didn't have any of my makeup. So we made a quick run over to thank goodness there was a really great mall across the street.
Pivot. Talk about pivot.
Right?
Big time.
And so and I brought my scooter very last minute. I had never really used it before. I had never been comfortable with it and accepting that I needed it. So it was like life-changing for me to have that with me. I wouldn't have been able to get over to the mall by myself. And so I grabbed some makeup, and then, you know, Tord was there, and I walked in and I was like, the problem, like my body has changed so much. And so my old jeans don't fit me in the stomach anymore. And they're really, really big in the legs. And so I needed like pull on jeans that don't have like snaps and stuff. And so there was like this one like golden pair left that was like in the clearance section. They were from the summer, but I'm like, they'll work. I love them. And they were just a perfect fit. So I had brought, I had told Beth, if I happen to get there early and go shopping and find the perfect jeans, I have like another outfit. So I brought all the accessories to go with it. And so that was kind of thrown in very last minute, but
Well,
it was
and
very
see,
hard. Sorry.
And see, we have to, like, we have to be open to that. We had, like everybody had the outfits that we thought, we kind of settled on, okay, these are going to be our 2 outfits. And we had narrowed them down and refined them over, probably about a month's period. But we also knew that we were going to have to be open to what worked or what didn't. I even myself had a brand new pair of compression that worked at the beginning of the week at home, but then like the different color of them, I went to put on one of the, I guess it was like the day before the conference started, and they were tighter. And I was like, what in the world is that? Like, what's going on? Like, but I had flown, I had already, had like whatever little sleep. And I'm sure that my body was just like, in that, starting the swelling from all of that. And it wasn't unusual, but and then, just even amongst, I think this year we did a little bit more than we did last year insofar as like really creating a great team environment. So like one of the other gals knew that she was going to have to pivot depending on whether Jenn found the jeans or not. And, somebody else is going to have to pivot on the timing of another one of our models. So really,
I was affecting somebody else. I feel so bad.
Oh, no,
silly.
no, no,
No,
no
it's
bad
great.
feelings. No, 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 no.
Why?
And I
Nobody
do love that point. I love that point
No.
that everybody swoops in. Didn't you
No,
notice
there
at
was
the
like nobody was
conference,
concerned about it. They were like, yeah, okay,
everybody
for sure.
swoops in to back each other up. Now, one
Yeah.
of the other speakers who I really want to acknowledge, and we thank you so much, Sarah Bramblette, for being with us tonight. She talked about the Lymphedema Treatment Act. And, I've been sort of a fan of yours for a while, and I've never had the opportunity or the privilege of meeting you in person, but I want to thank you for all you do for the community. Please tell us a little bit about yourself for those who don't know and what you talked about.
I know, I feel like everyone, everyone else who's talked, like they've shared their personal story, and I've shared my personal story at past FDRS. And I kind of was thinking like, oh my gosh, I talked about like boring stuff, even though it's not boring. But then I kind of made the realization that is my personal story, this advocacy work, because, and with like Jenn's talk about pivoting for the past 2 years, I've been pivoting for the past 20 years. I had bariatric surgery in 2003 before I even was diagnosed with lipedema. I had been diagnosed with lymphedema, but I'd never been diagnosed with lipedema until I started losing weight. And it was like, whoa, wait a minute, what's this odd shape you have? And of course, all the doctors, like I wasn't meeting their expectations of expected loss and all this other crap. But I had this, like, I was in my early 20s. I was going to get, surgery. I was going to get educated and employed. And I didn't actually finish my degree at that time because I was I tried to do surgery, treatment for my lymphedema, and graduate school all at the same time. And that is not a good combination. So I had cellulitis so often, that was the first time I was getting hospitalized for it. But I still was like, let me just take some incompletes. And I still did the job search. And that's how I ended up from Ohio to Florida. And this is where I like got good health care. And I had a doctor who like, when another doctor told her that something was just because of my weight, she was like, absolutely not. She's too young. That doesn't happen. But that was a mini stroke. Like I've had so many other things, a mini stroke, found a hole in my heart. Like it just, and anyways, so I had to navigate the insurance process and getting my first pair of compression and everything. And I thought I had like finally, so just a little bit personal, like I was on Medicaid at the time in Ohio. I was able to get the treatment and I moved to Florida and I got a real job with real insurance. And that was such a like, on you because so I've been fighting for compression ever since my very first pair. And then what made the Lymphedema Treatment Act even more, so I knew about it in 2010, but what really made it more personal is I had gotten laid off in 2009. And so I had been on SSI, but because I had worked when I got laid off, I then had enough work credits to get SSDI and then got Medicare. Talk about roller coaster, merry-go-round. I mean, so anyway, so I found myself, thankfully, because I got laid off again on Medicare. And that was in 2013. And it's really being on Medicare without coverage for compression really was when my health pivoted to a bad side, because I wasn't able to control my lymphedema anymore. I regained a lot more weight. And I started getting cellulitis a lot more. So it really brought that fight to get this coverage fixed. I'd always beat all my private insurance. I always had an appeal, always got my coverage. Medicare was a harder fight, but for those of you who heard the presentation, we won that fight. But now we're still, when everyone talks about like the post-conference blues, I was like, I was answering emails on my rest stop, like I had to like let people know, like, I will not be responding to emails for these few days. And then it was like, right back into to work at things. And actually, because people were impressed with my talk and there's so much need in the community, I had the additional of, hey, Sarah, might you be able to help us with this? And it's something that I, did look into helping, and I probably will help with. But yeah, it's, but our personal stories is what really brought, made this work. I mean, personal stories of everyone. Is what got this passed. And as anyone who heard the presentation, it is for lymphedema compression, but anyone here who has that secondary, diagnosis of lymphedema, it will cover Medicare, and then it'll filter down to the other insurances, of course. And, part of the conversation was, especially with the Lipedema Foundation, is how can we get this additional, research and things to add that coverage, add the lipedema diagnosis to that coverage eventually.
So I hope that you have a moment to look at all the chat, because you're getting so many.
It's gone from like 50 to 99 just in the time that I was talking.
Because people want you to know just how appreciated you are, Sarah. And Siouxsie, you had mentioned something in chat. Why don't you shout it out now so the whole world.
So I had a little fangirl moment when I saw you, Sarah. I didn't say hi to you because you were always like engaged at FDRS, but I was like, oh my God. I was like, that's Sarah. Like, you were one of the first people when I got diagnosed. And then I started doing research to actually find out, because, when you get diagnosed, sometimes it's hard. You're like, but does this really exist? Are there other people like legit? And you'd already gotten some media coverage, and I was at FDRS. It was my first one. And so like, when you're saying that, I'm like, are you kidding me? You're like one of the OGs that helped to actually raise awareness for lipedema and lymphedema. Like, holy, are you kidding? Like, awesome.
Now, I promised our audience that you would drop at least one curse word, Siouxsie.
I was trying to retain. I'm trying to contain myself till later.
I mean, but I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead, Sarah.
Well, I was just going to say, that's what, like, Jenn's talk at the conference was so important, because sometimes you only hear the positives about things. And I know I found that in the bariatric community, where everyone like, and I realized that a lot of times why my surgeon didn't understand my struggles, because people who struggled weren't coming back to him because they were embarrassed by things. And that's why my advocacy, and I won't, knowing that we all take our different paths, but my other advocacy is in the obesity world, because I want those doctors to know what they're seeing. And I want them to be able to give patients adequate, realistic expectations. And so, and I would have people, I mentioned this because I have one of my friends from that community, I actually had her come to Dallas because she thought she had lipedema, and in Dallas, they were doing research, and they wanted lipedema patients and non-lipedema patients. And I said, hey, just come as a non-lipedema patient and see what you get told. And she got diagnosed with lipedema. And I found there's a lot of us who have had surgery and struggle and have the underlying lipedema who've just never been diagnosed. But I had been told on some of the forums for bariatric surgery, like, you need to stop talking about lipedema. You're stealing people's hope. Like, they have a hope of, finally being a normal size, and you're stealing that from them. And I thought, I kind of want the honest reality answer of things. I mean, I've gone down and didn't reach all the way back up, but pretty darn close to all the way back up. And it's interesting for people, even sometimes our own community had said, yeah, how'd that work out for you? And I thought, well, I mean, at the time it did save my life, but we have a progressive illness. So, I mean, how condescending is that? You know, like we're making the best choices we can make with the treatment we had at the time. And this was 20 years ago. No one, I did know of one other person with lipedema at the time, one other person at the time.
Wow.
And so that's why I'm the youngest of 5, and I was always loved my siblings, but I was teased and stuff. But I said they prepared me for society, because I'm sure, and I know I'm not on Instagram as much as the rest of you are, but I know the ones who are, you know, the comments you get, the over lovingly ones that Pale Ginger Bear has talked about. And then I know you get all the ones, you just need to eat less and whatever. And you know, one time a few years ago, because people like mocked my TED Talk, people mocked the doctors. Someone who I went to grade school with went from kindergarten. No, she wasn't in kindergarten, but from 3rd grade all the way to high school. And we were never friends. She was always what I considered the popular. We never fought or anything. She wasn't mean to me. It was just separate friends. She commented back and said, I know Sarah, and she's one of the nicest people in the world. And no, I can't say I know what she eats, but she said, if more people were like her, the world would be a better place. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is a person who you would think didn't know me, you know, because you didn't have, but everyone you know, you hear so much people who have that like animosity about, you know, school, you know, whatever. And it was just like, so, you know, interesting to see someone sticking up for me that I really didn't expect. But,
you know, I one of the polls that I'd put out on the Hiba app, for those of you who don't know, the whole conference basically lived on our phone, and some of you logged on and could watch sessions that way. And I had asked a poll, how many of you had been bullied as a youth? And it was an 80% response rate. And, you know, back in the day, that was tolerated. And unfortunately still goes on way too long now. And then when people like you put yourselves out there in vulnerable ways to try and help the community, I just honor that and respect so much what you sometimes expose yourself to that can be very hurtful. And I appreciate you for that. And I have always said that this is a love only zone, a no judgment zone. Sometimes, and I am the worst, I'll put my foot in my mouth and say the wrong thing, but never intentionally, never to hurt anyone, always wanting to do our best. And PGP, you didn't actually get to give a synopsis of what you talked about, but my goodness, everybody's still talking about that hot pink outfit you had on. And we want to know more about that and the undergarments that you also used that helped pull that look off. And talk about the roller coaster, which Sarah, you just basically talked about the roller coaster. PGP, her whole message was about the roller coaster. Go ahead, share with us.
So first I want to say, Sarah, I'm sorry we didn't really get to talk at FDRS. Every time I looked, you were talking to somebody, or that somebody was pulling me in a direction. So I feel like we didn't really get to talk like we had wanted. But my pink suit was from Torrid, and the black lace kind of like bodysuit underneath was Torrid as well. And my
shoes. It was Torrid, honey. Torrid. Collective fanning of ourselves.
But I also had on both my Medi and my lipoelastic compression underneath the suit. So by the time I was done, I was like pulling off my suit jacket because I was dying. Because I am always hot. Like, one of my childhood nicknames was Furnace. Like, I was always hot. But yeah, I just talked about the up and down of my life with my body. My body has always been the topic of everybody else's conversation but my own. I never really cared. Like, I always felt probably more like the way I look now than how I ever looked before. And I just kind of felt trapped in this like puffy, inflamed like body. But I mean, it literally started with me as a baby with the nickname Squeezer that my dad gave me. He used to pass me around and be like, you just have to squeeze her, and would like show them like squeeze her thighs, like you just have to squeeze her. And it got shortened to Squeezer or Squeeze. And that was a nickname that him and my one grandfather called me until both of them passed away. And it was told as such a loving story, but like looking back, I'm like, that's kind of fucked up. Like, it's, you know, it's kind of like really focused on like body versus like who I was. And it went from like the cute chubby baby to the cute chubby toddler to then like, oh, you're the elementary student that's chubby. Well, now all of a sudden it's not right. It's not cute anymore. And then my dad had issues with his weight, so I was put on every fad diet in the 80s and 90s that he did, because he meant well. He didn't want me to get to where he was mentally, but his approach was just so wrong. And it just made it worse. Like, I have severe food trauma because of it. Like, Dr. Jamie has told me, like, you don't eat enough. You need
I
to eat
watched
more.
you and you don't.
I don't eat. Yeah.
You do not eat.
Yeah, at all. It's like, it's bad. Like, I'm aware that, like, I mean, I work 10-hour shifts and it'll be like, I start at 7 a.m. It'll be like 4 o'clock and I'm like, oh, I should probably eat something. Like,
Wow.
I never feel hungry, so I just don't think about it, which I know a lot of people would love for it to be that way, but I wish I enjoyed food. You know, I'm trying to get back into like the dating world, and everybody's like, where do you want to go eat? And I'm like, I don't like food. Can we go to Waffle House? Really? Waffle House? Yeah, that's what I want. Like, potatoes and bacon is safe for me. I'm not going to get sick. Like, can we? And so it's a really, like, I wish I enjoyed food. I just don't. But I mean, it just, my whole,
You know, there is this complicated relationship with food for many. Wyckham, I see you nodding your head. Jump on in there.
Yeah, I mean, it's so crazy how much, how many of us have disordered eating in our past or our present. And, you know, if you see a skinny person who is, you know, meticulously counting calories and over exercising and cutting out all these different food groups, you know, they get help. Whereas we are congratulated because we're trying. And all that is doing is messing up our bodies and our metabolism and mostly our like mental state about how we feel about food. It's so hard to get through. And I think, you know, again, like when you are a fat person, people assume that you can't have an eating disorder, which is nonsense. We have been on diets all of our life, you know, or as long as we were fat, at least, or presumed fat by our parents, you know. I look at pictures of myself when I was a kid and I was like, I wasn't fat.
Yeah.
They all telling me I'm
Fine.
I mean, I included them in my presentation. I was like, you're telling me that this 3-year-old, like that, you know, it baffles me. I vividly remember being 12 and at the doctor with my mom, and the doctor asking me, no, what all do you eat? And I like rattled off, and he's like, okay, so that was in the morning. Like, what did you eat all day? And I was like, no, that was like yesterday and today. And he was like, okay. He was like, he turns to mom. He's like, you're not going to yell at her, right? And my mom's like, and he's like, it's a safe space. Like, you can tell me what you really ate. And I was like, no, that's what I ate. And my mom's like, that's what she ate. And he was like, my mom's like, she's 12. She doesn't drive. We live out in the country. There's no corner store that she can go walk to. Like, she goes to school where I teach. So I take her to and from school. I pack her lunch. Like, she doesn't work a job or drive anywhere by herself. Like, she's literally dependent on me for food. And I know what I buy, and I know how quick I go through groceries. Like, she's not sneaking stuff as she goes to bed or we're in bed. And he wrote in my chart, patient and mother in denial.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a really profound moment when you shared
Yeah.
that, and it's hurtful. A lot of people, this is resonating, this talk about this relationship with food and the energy spent to defend something that we don't need to defend to anyone. Hiba, I saw you nodding a lot. Is there something you want to add?
This topic gets me riled up. I remember my first visit to the doctor. I think I was 5 or 6 years old. I was going to get shots before I started school, all of my vaccines, and I was a chubby little kid. I look like this, man, curly hair, big eyes. I love lipstick even as a child, so I probably look like this at the doctor's office. I go in, my mom is just like, so she's a little bit bigger, like, is that okay? Is she okay? The doctor reaches over, pats my belly, and says, she just loves to eat, stop feeding her, it's fine. That just kept repeating itself. I remember when I was just in a full-blown, like, year-long disordered eating just pattern of just restricting and binging. And I remember a doctor would tell me, like, I was like, I don't eat. I'm counting all my calories. I work out 3 hours a day. Like, I'm killing myself and I've lost 4 pounds. And he said, well, you can lie. You can lie to me, you can lie to yourself, but you can't lie to us on the scale. And I was like, okay, all right. So I will just keep starving myself and working myself to death. And hopefully by the next time I'll have lost another 2 pounds and you'll give me a gold star. Like, what? It's just frustrating. And I think that's probably what frustrated me the most what resonated the most with me the past that whole weekend was just hearing these stories, but it made me angry. Like, it just made me raging mad that so many of us have this shared experience, and it's not right at all. It's not right to have been treated this way. It's not right that we just accepted it. And so, I mean, back to your, we're not going to take it. Yeah, we're not going to take it. That's it. It's enough. We know what's going on. You know more about what's going on with our bodies now, and we have resources, we have each other, we have this amazing community, and I'm ready to just tear this down, burn it to the ground. Let's start over. This cycle is no good. I'm out.
There is a groundswell of advocacy happening. People like all of you on the screen and everybody in chat affecting change, pushing the needle. And then let's talk for a moment of how gratified we were at leading voices in the medical community, speaking up and caring and devoting time to research and also advances to help the lipedema community. What were some of the medical highlights from anybody that was there? If you want to share what really got you. Of course, I talked about how Linda Ann Kahn and the vagus nerve and how you can pull on your ears and it can help the parasympathetic part of you to calm a bit. I loved Linda Ann Kahn's talk. Go ahead, Pattie. What did you want to share?
Dr. Herbst and compartment syndrome. Like,
Yes.
honestly, I seriously had not heard that before. And everything she said just was like, oh, that makes so much. Oh, that makes so. I've watched it 4 times since we've gotten home because I'm just like, amazing.
I want to also mention that Lympha Press is hosting Dr. Herbst to do an hour-long talk on compartment syndrome as part of Lipedema Awareness Month. So if you go to Lympha Press, the link tree, in fact, I'll try to put it in chat, you can register for that and you can ask questions just like you would in a webinar format. Also, Linda Ann Kahn for Lipedema Awareness Month is doing her talk on the vagus nerve. She's bringing that to the Lympha Press platform. June is always devoted to lipedema awareness for Lympha Press, but really we care about it every month and all year long because we have devoted this platform as well to sharing your stories and hearing your voices. Anybody else want to talk? Sarah, did you want to mention something about the medical takeaway? And Jenny, I see you want to speak as well.
So, I mean, as someone who's been, diagnosed 20 years ago, I am like so impressed that finally there's research being done. And I know sometimes people who are newly diagnosed come in and they're like, how do we not know this? Or how do we not? And I'm just like, we have come so far. Like, this is awesome. If I can just like overall the medical stuff, like just to touch on what Hiba was saying, I my evidence of my lipedema is evident in like 3rd grade pictures. And I can remember my mom. So like my frustration is no one effing knew what was going on. And they just assumed I was eating more. And my mom later, like my mom put me in this one program. And I mean, my mom raised me to be like this. So bless her heart. May she rest in peace. But I mean, like, I don't know. I got this. She even questioned where the hell I got all this confidence. But I can remember she put me like in the 6-week hospital program. And they're like, drink white milk instead of chocolate milk at lunch. And I was like, already do, you know, like eat your salad or whatever. I'm like, already do. So later my mom told me that the people of that program told her like, Sarah's never going to lose weight because it doesn't bother her enough. And I'm just like, or the fact that I'm already doing what you're telling me to do, you know? And then the second thing is she said the doctor at one time told her like, Sarah's gained 40 pounds since her last visit. And I said, and no one thought to ask what was going on. But of course, anytime I had blood work done or anything, the tests that they did all came back normal, thyroid normal. I mean, you know, like, and so my frustration now, and I know we have surgeons now who are doing more late stage patients, but just typically what I feel like is I got to a late stage because I was ignored and denied care and everything. And now I get to a late stage and they're like, sorry, we don't know what to do with you because you're so advanced stage. And I'm like, but it's your fault. It's your fault that I'm so advanced stage. So this is wrong, you know? So I'm just glad that there is more being learned and more being done. And the next step is to make sure that I don't know how many people are on. I know for myself being disabled, a lot of the late stage, advanced stage patients might be in my same situation. So until we get better Medicare or Medicaid coverage for some of these treatments, it's still not going to help us, even if there's doctors capable of doing it. So.
Right.
Thank you for sharing that. And I know, Jenny, you wanted to add something.
2 things. So after the compartment syndrome section, every time I do my self MLD, as I move along my body, it's like, oh yeah, there's a compartment. Oh yeah, there's a compartment. So that was definitely a big one. But I also think Guy's presentation about how they're going to move forward on the research. And, you know, one thing I was reminded of when I went back and listened to the research section again, he asked for feedback from people, you know, to go to their website, to their contact information and get input, particularly input from patients, you know, because they're looking at how they're going to frame moving forward on research since the dollars are limited. And he was talking about moving from small number studies to large number studies is important. But how it's going to shape us moving to a place of understanding diagnosis and getting better treatments going once they've got all this basis. But if you have any thoughts at all about what you want to see happen, now is the time to reach out to them and give voice. And from what I hear for people at the conference, and definitely anybody who was typing him questions in the virtual world, he was terrific at responding.
Yeah,
So,
Guy Eakin is wonderful. We had the privilege of having dinner with him one night, Pattie and I, and talked his ear off, and he was just so open. And he, for those of you who don't know, is with Lipedema Foundation. I just put lipedema.org in chat if you want to participate in the registry, or if you have questions. Lori Pelnitz had him on her podcast. Lori, we're so glad you're here tonight. Nita Cluis, you're out there. So many of our friends, Alexis McKay, Ain Webster, Angela Parsons, Angela Gray, Cynthia Mason. We love you all and we appreciate you. And I can't shout everyone out, but I wish I could. I was able to be one of the closing speakers. And along with what Wyckham shared, I talked about settling your worth, stopping the comparisons and editing that internal critic, evicting those negative thoughts and never turning your back on yourself again. And some of you have reached out to me, and I had a picture of me with a mug that said, I will never turn my back on myself again. And I actually have that available. So you can go to my link tree. I also put in chat the link tree for Lympha Press, so you can sign up for those webinars I talked about. We have just 7 minutes left. So I'm going to do round robin here and parting thoughts that you want to leave our wonderful and beloved audience with. And Angelique, may I start with you, please?
Yes, you can. I don't have any encouraging words this week. I have a message for two Arizona viewers, Amanda Hadaway, who I know is on right now, and Angela Jones, who is in the air, and I sent the wrong link to. I went ahead and got swag bags for you guys, and they include the book from Susan O'Hara. And as I was gathering up the swag bag, I'm like, there goes Angela Jones right there on the Lympha Press brochure. But I will be getting with you guys in the next month here to give you guys some swag bags from FDRS.
Fantastic.
Nice.
That is awesome. All right. On to you, Pattie. Takeaways for everyone.
Hope. I always feel so hopeful when I hear what the medical professionals are working on. And every year, Dr. Herbst has got something new that you're like, I've never heard of that before. And I've been in this for 10 plus years. So just the amount of hope that comes with it.
Hope. Love it. Don't want to say too much more because we were running out of time. So Beth, you're next. What do you want to leave with our audience?
I want to leave that what I took from one of Dr. Herbst's talks was she talked about the importance of pumping the ankles. And she talked about how, you know, I mean, if it's walking, if it's sitting at your desk and doing toe raises while you're sitting there, if it's while you're standing in line and doing toe raises, it's while you're watching TV, whatever, that foot ankle action of just moving really helps the lymphatics get going. And I really took that away. And I think it's just incredibly important. And so simple, and most of us can do something, you know, if you can't do it while you're standing, if you can just in bed while you're laying there, go like that, it's better than nothing, or you're on the plane doing that. So that's important. And then I just wanted to say, if you didn't see in the chat, I extended the fashion styling appointments to everybody who's here tonight. So feel free to reach out for that as well. I'd love to gather with you all.
How fun is that? That's wonderful. Thank you, Beth. Curvy girl, Beth, we appreciate you being with us tonight. Siouxsie, what do you want to say to everyone?
I mean, I wanted to just say my takeaway from that, from the conference, was how much scientific data actually backs up what is happening with us. The ability to speak confidently, not only to your doctor with real valid information, but even this last weekend at the conference where I was at KetoCon for our brand thing, I saw this woman distinctly had lipedema, struggling, and she came over to my table and I said, hi, I never do this, and please don't be offended, but I have what I want to talk to you about. And I started telling her what lipedema was, not saying, I think you have it, but lipedema is this and this. Literally, her eyes welled up and she looked at me and she went, oh my God. I said, we have a community. We can help you. And she was like, literally, like little tears. And her husband came up to me and was like, you talked to my wife. Thank you so much. You have no idea what that means to me. And I was just like, my husband, it was the most exciting highlight of the weekend. My husband got teary-eyed and was like, did you just do what I think you just did? And I said, yes. It was awesome.
I'm so glad you did. I'm so glad that the community has your voice, and not just your voice, but the heart behind it, Siouxsie. And since you didn't say it, you were at the keto conference because of your scrummy coffee caramels and gummies. Yum, yum, yum. Zero guilt. Big flavor. Anyhow.
Hi, hype team. Thank you.
Yeah, right. Had to get that in there. Wyckham, I saw you really enthusiastically nodding when Siouxsie was talking. What would you like to share?
I'm a nodder. I like to, you know,
I love that.
around. Yeah, I think that's oh man, Siouxsie, that's just amazing. And the thing that keeps us from doing that sometimes is that shame that we hold, and we don't want to embarrass them. But we have to push past that so we can get to those conversations, so we can all connect like this connection. That's what we all gain so much from the conference, sure. And it's just, I am, like I said before, I'm so touched to be a part of this group now, and I like feel like one of the cool kids.
Oh, you're actually cooler
Yeah.
than at least the moderator, for sure. Sarah, please.
You know, I am going to have the best New Year's Eve celebration ever this year. I'm going to contact my vendor on January 1st to get compression. And then after that, you know, I've learned so much in this process. I really look forward to what additional help I can be to the community. And I know we have some advanced stage patients who really need help, really need access to care, because we are, you know, home. I mean, I consider myself homebound, even though I went to Atlanta. It was not easy. It was difficult. One of the reasons I didn't see Cara and Pattie that much is because I was resting in my hotel room. So, but just knowing the information I have now, what other things we can get fixed, and it'll take time, but I'm just looking forward to that.
We are looking forward to it too. Jenn Sephton.
I have a quote. I was ready for you. And you do the wrap up. So I have a quote from Michael J. Fox that I shared on my Instagram today. This message is so simple, yet it gets forgotten. The people living with the conditions are the experts.
Exactly.
And
That's
like,
so true.
not the patient support, but the medical professionals that believe us and are working to support us, like they're getting it and they're listening to us, which is amazing.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
I was just telling a doctor at the weight loss surgery conference that I was at that if you go to the lipedema conference and you just have a table of 12 women for dinner, it sounds like much higher level than the doctor's conversations, because everybody has had to deep dive so much to educate themselves. That they really, you know, often come in with more information than even their own doctors have.
This is a first. I've actually allowed this to go over, but I definitely want the rest of you to have your final words. Hiba, please share with us.
I think the thing, in addition to all the research, everything that we saw, I think the thing that hit me the hardest was just how immediately I felt at home. Like for me, there's no way I can describe that feeling as somebody who's awkward and a little bit introverted. I was anxious about all of this, but to me, being at the conference and meeting everyone, it's like coming home from a long day at work and taking off your shoes, taking off your bra, putting on sweats, getting on the couch, and that feeling of just like letting your guard down and just being yourself, being comfortable. But having that immediately with a lot of strangers was just very wonderful, but kind of a surprise to me. So, but I thoroughly, like, I enjoyed it. I appreciated the people that I met. This community is amazing. Like what has been done, what is going to be done. I'm hopeful about just what this group can do and who we can pull into this fight, and move forward.
So Amanda Hadaway just put this in chat and I want to read it. A river cuts through rock, not because of its power, but because of its persistence. Jim Watkins said that, and that is so true. There is such persistence here. PGP, talk about persistence.
So my kind of takeaway is we need to be vocal in every aspect of our health, not just how vocal we are about lipedema, because until we get the whole medical community to realize that fat people need care, that equipment overall is made larger, we're going to have a struggle getting surgeries, because if they can't rush us somewhere in case of an emergency, or we can't get an MRI beforehand, we're never going to be able to get the lipedema surgeries that we need to fix the actual problem. So we need the overall medical community to realize, like, the general population is bigger than it was 50 years ago. We need to update our equipment.
Amen.
Amen. And I believe, Jenny, you are the one person I did not call on.
Yeah. Pressure. So first of all, I want to say to Mary Ellen, who just posted, she's new here, and go to the Facebook pages, search for lipedema, go to Instagram for any of these folks, except for me. They all have awesome Instagram pages, and we're here for you because this is our tribe and we are worth it. And if you learn nothing else, you'll learn, don't deny yourselves, go out there and live, you know, don't stay behind the curtain, get the heck out there.
Together, everyone achieves more. Together.
Mhm.
Together is always better. And I cannot think of a better way to spend my time than with you amazing human beings. And we appreciate all of you watching. We appreciate our special guests. We send hearts every month. We end our show. We end our show with hearts because we're all about love here. And we hope you felt the love. And when you are feeling the lack, oh my goodness, we're here. Any one of us are here for you. There are people like Casey Grosvenor that's out there watching, and our friends, Julian Dukes, who is so full of love. All of you wonderful people. Thank you for being here. Thank you for honoring us with an extra hour out of your month. And we will see you on the third Wednesday of May for our regularly scheduled Lipedema Patient Roundtable. Thank you all for being here. From Lympha Press, I'm Brenda Viola. Have a great night.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.